Planning a fiction book is a bit like planning a road trip. You want enough structure to know where you're going, but not so much that you can't take the scenic route when inspiration hits. Most writers get stuck because they think planning means locking themselves into a rigid outline. It doesn't. Planning is simply making decisions early so your creativity has room to breathe later. Planning a book isn't about limiting your story, it's about liberating your brain. If you've ever sat down to write and felt overwhelmed, scattered, or unsure where to begin, this guide is your new compass. I'm going to walk you through a planning process that's flexible, intuitive, and designed for real humans with real lives, not mythical writers who have 8 uninterrupted hours and a cabin in the woods. And if you want a little extra support as you go, I'll be pointing you towards different resources that can help you build momentum without burning out. Let's dive in. First, let's talk about why planning your fiction book really matters, even if you're not a natural planner. So, some writers resist planning because they fear it will kill the magic. But here's the truth: planning protects your magic. It keeps you from wandering into plot quicksand, burning out halfway through, or rewriting the same chapter 12 times. Think of your writing plan as a promise to your future self. It says, I won't leave you guessing. Planning gives you clarity so you know what you're building. It gives you momentum so you don't stall after chapter 3. It gives you confidence so you stop second guessing every creative choice. And it gives you a map so you can explore without getting lost. Next, we're going to talk about 9, and they'll be short, don't worry, 9 steps to planning out your novel. So, step 1, you really want to start with the heart of your story. Before you think about plot, structure, or world building, you need to know the emotional core of your book. This is the heartbeat, the thing that makes your story worth telling. If you know the heart of your story, you'll never lose your way. To figure out the heart of your story, ask yourself, what is this story really about? What question or questions am I exploring? What emotional journey do I want the reader to experience? And what emotional journey does my protagonist need to experience? This is your story's North Star. Everything else, plot twists, character arcs, world building, it just orbits around it. Number 2, clarify your main character's transformation. This is really big, so pay attention. Readers don't fall in love with plots, they fall in love with people changing, the story of how people change. Your protagonist's transformation is the spine of your story. It's the before and after picture that gives your book shape. So you really want to define 3 things. The want, so what does your character think that they want? The need, what do they actually need to grow? And then the wound. So, what past experience or experiences have shaped their worldview? Once you know these, your plot becomes a series of events that challenge your character's worldview and it forces them to evolve. And the character that you end up with at the end of the book is not the character that you started out with. And that is how you create a compelling narrative arc. Number 3, you're going to build your story world just enough. This doesn't apply to all genres, but if it applies to your genre, listen up. World building is both delicious and dangerous. It's easy to spend months creating maps, magic systems, and political histories without writing a single chapter. For planning purposes, you only need to define the rules, so magic, technology, society, etc., the limits, so what can't happen, the vibe, which is your tone, your atmosphere, aesthetic, and then the key locations where major scenes unfold. Your goal as an author is to create a world that feels relatable and lived in, not encyclopedic. Number 4, you want to choose a plot structure that supports you, not the other way around. So there's no single right way to structure a novel, but choosing a framework gives you a great starting point. Remember, when it comes to writing a book, structure is a container, not a constraint. Plot structure exists to provide you a path, not dictate how you experience the journey. Here are three really beginner friendly options for plot structure. First, you have the three act structure, which is simple, intuitive, widely used first act, second act, third act. Next, you have the hero's journey, great for fantasy, sci fi, and adventure. Also, really good for character transformation. And third, you have the 7 point plot structure, which is perfect for writers who want clarity without rigidity. You're going to choose the one that feels like a helpful guide, not a cage. So in our Idea to Ink e-course, we actually use a combination of the hero's journey and the three-act structure. I feel like this is great for beginners while still allowing complexity in the plot. So we actually do a combination of the two and spend a whole day or two walking through those. Step 5, create a chapter level roadmap. So this is where your planning becomes practical. A chapter roadmap is not a detailed outline. It's a list of narrative beats that help you see the shape of the story. So for each chapter, you may want to consider jotting down just generally what happens, who's involved, what changes, what the leader learns, how it moves the character arc forward. You don't need all of those, but at least some of those are good. Aim for about 12 to 20 chapters, depending on the genre and the pacing. If you're not quite sure how many you need, or you're not really sure, you want a little more guidance on that, I have free novel planning templates that actually include a chapter by chapter roadmap. You can print it off, you can use it digitally, and I will put the link below in the comments and also in the description of this movie. So, number 6, step 6, once you've done all that, you really want to identify your story's tension threads. Tension is what keeps readers turning pages. Without it, even the most beautiful prose just falls flat. Too much tension, and you stress the reader out. Not enough, and you bore them to death. Tension is the quiet engine that drives your story forward, and balancing that tension is a craft. Specific thing about craft, authors can hone it with practice. So here are three different types of tension that really make a great story. The first one is external tension. This is your plot level conflict. What is happening generally? Number 2 is your internal tension. This is the emotional struggle that your characters are feeling. And then third is relational tension, and that's the dynamics between the characters. So, as an example, my husband and I just watched the movie Game Night, and Game Night is about some people that have a game night, and one of the people at the game night gets kidnapped, and everybody else has to go save them. Okay, so that's your plot level conflict, that's your external tension. But while this is happening, you have this emotional struggle, you have this internal tension with the different characters about some other plot lines. So, not being able to have a child, or not wanting to have a child. And then you have this relational tension. So, the husband and the wife, Jason Bateman, and I do not remember the woman's name, but they have this relational tension at the same time. So, as you see this plot level conflict kind of hit a climax and come down, you also see this internal and relational tension at the same time. And it's a really good example of all of that. Step 7 is you want to plan your key turning points. So every strong story has a few just pivotal moments. That's what I was kind of saying about that climax. These are scenes readers remember long after they close the book. So this is usually there's some kind of inciting incident, a point of no return, kind of a midpoint shift. I just like the way this sounds, the dark night of the soul, or in our Idea to Ink course, we call this the moment of truth. So what little nugget of wisdom does your character learn that changes them forever? And then what do they do with that nugget? How do they go back home, figuratively or literally speaking, and how do they share that nugget? These moments are going to anchor your story and give your writing sessions direction. So they're really important. Step 8, We're going to build a flexible writing workflow. So, planning your book is only half the journey. You also need a writing rhythm that actually supports your life. So, you can try this simple workflow, a weekly planning session. So, maybe like 10 minutes, 3 to 5 writing sessions, which could be 30 minutes or an hour each, doesn't matter. One kind of anchor session for revising and expanding, and then maybe a running idea list for spontaneous inspiration. So it keeps you moving without burning you out, and you know where you are at all points. If you're someone who loves a lot of guidance and wants a step by step, like day by day workflow that takes you from basically an idea to a finished draft, that is actually why I created the Idea to Ink e-course. And it's using the exact same system I use to write books. And basically, I created this course to help anyone, especially new writers, write a book in 21 days, which is ambitious, and that's not a finished book, I will say. That is your first draft. But creating that first draft is the hardest. And as we go through this course, literally every single day, we focus on something. So it's a really nice step by step, and obviously I'm biased, but it's a really nice step by step guide. Um, Especially if you're not really sure how to go about writing a book and you want that accountability and community, because we do have a community with that. Last but not least, and this is really important, step 9 is protecting the magic. There's something really magical about writing. And a lot of people don't plan because they feel like it'll stifle their creativity. But planning should never suffocate your creativity, it should amplify it. Your plan is a living document. You should update it, break it, bend it, let it grow with your story. And you can protect that magic by leaving space for discovery, allowing characters to surprise you, letting scenes evolve naturally, and revisiting your plan as you learn more. The book that I'm currently writing, I actually ended up writing a whole chapter from the wrong point of view by accident. But I think it was a happy accident because afterwards I was like, I love this. I love this chapter, and this character must have had something to say. So now I'm going to revisit my plan and kind of move some things around so that it makes sense where it lives in the story as of right now. A couple little final thoughts to end. Planning planning a fiction book isn't about necessarily being organized. At its core, it's about being brave enough to say that my story matters and I'm going to build it with intention. You don't need a perfect outline. You don't need a 40-page encyclopedia about the language of elves. You don't need to know every twist before you begin. You just need a compass, a character who wants to say something, and the willingness to take that first step. Happy writing.
Don't forget to like and subscribe for more writer tips and resources.